Good morning. Welcome to First Sip by Draft for Upside. I am Brewery Mark. Joining me this morning is Chris Emmerich. How's it going today, sir?
It is going good. I'm ready to make some money today. Feeling good about it.
Yeah, we were chatting a little bit this morning, and you feel like it's a really good slate, and you seem confident today in DFS and betting.
Yeah, more so in betting. I mean, there's a lot of plays that I like in DFS, so you're still going to have those roster construction situations where like you just can't fit everybody that you want and who you're going to put in there, and it's making those lineups was kind of frustrating just looking through it because there are a couple plays that I really like and some situations that we're monitoring with that Q tag that really wish we had a little more guidance on right now.
Yeah, I found myself, I really liked a lot of high-end running backs, which is forcing me more into the discount wide receiver range. So I struggled a little bit last night and this morning building some of my lineups. But we'll get into that. I'm on coffee this morning. I don't know. I had a late night, so I'm drinking the caffeine. What do you got?
Look, don't get me started about late night. So I left Virginia at 6 o'clock on Friday, drove straight to Florida, got there at 10 o'clock on Saturday, went to sleep till about 3 o'clock, woke up at 4, drove back to Virginia. So out of that 36 hours, I was in the car for like 32 or something like that. There was a couple naps on the road, but I have had a 5-hour energy, 2 cups of coffee, and now I'm on a Wicked Weed little drink here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just a small one that I picked up. I got some stuff from Florida when I was down there. Stopped at the Total Wine, got some Last Snow. I've got some High Low, which is the High Lie Session beer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love High Lie.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Bell's session for
lighthearted.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, when I was in North Carolina for that year last year, I drank a lot of Wicked Weed. It's it's brewed in North Carolina. It's great.
Yeah, I picked this up. I think I got something from Crooked Staff and I want to say Upland. So I've got quite a few sours on tap.
My favorite style. I love it. All right. Hey, before we get going into the position, we have a question on Facebook already. And this might be one you can answer pretty quick. Jerry's asking, how do you determine how you're going to set your lineups? And it sounds like he's new.
Yeah, well, okay, so it depends on the context that you're playing. So I think we all have some different philosophies, but so I'm playing mainly GPPs, and what that means is I'm playing the larger tournaments. I'm going in with the expectation that I'm probably not going to win most of these, but if I do win, I want to build my lineup in such a fashion that I'm going to get first place. And so I don't need to win very often. I need to win, once a month or once every other month. Or in this case, I won in the first week and I should be good for the rest of the year, even if I don't. But obviously the idea is to continue to win. But to expand on that further, there's certain probabilities that you're playing against here. And, last night in our group chat, there were a couple lineups that were sent out and I made a comment to, Lou Landers that he absolutely must hate correlations. And what I mean by that is that, you want your lineup to correlate. And the reason that you want it to correlate is it means you have a higher ceiling in terms of the points, but also it means that you have less decisions that you have to make. And what I mean by that is if you're picking the best player from every single game, you're looking for game environments that are good, and then the player inside that game environment that's going to succeed. And that means that you need to get a lot right. So a lot of my lineups that I've built already today are double stacked with a guy running back or single stack with a guy running back, meaning I've got a quarterback, a wide receiver, maybe 2 of them, and then one from the opposing team, meaning I just need to pick one game environment for all of those players. And then, it's just less decisions that I have to make. And if that game pops off, my favorite game, most people's favorite game, is probably going to be the Seahawks Bills. So a lot of my lineups are going to have DK Metcalf. They're going to have Tyler Lockett with Russell Wilson. I've got a little bit of Josh Allen on the early slate, and then Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. I'm picking this game. I'm betting that this game is going to do well. And if the game does well, I'm going to do well. On the other hand, if you're building a lineup that's more like 50-50s, heads up, stuff like that, then I'm trying to figure out the best plays that have safe floors. Guys like Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, Chase Edmonds, these guys, James Conner, these guys that are going to get 20 plus touches from the running back position and have really safe floors and good environments. Same thing for wide receivers, guys that are going to get a lot of targets, your Keenan Allens, your Julios. And then, I don't want to go too far down looking at guys like Mooney or I don't know, some other cheap guys that people are looking at in those type of lineups. And so there is some finesse to that, but that's the idea.
Yeah, you're in cash lineups, you're trying to avoid risk.
And it's okay if you have a guy that's highly owned. You're just trying to differentiate in one or two spots. You're not trying to put all your eggs in one basket. You're looking for guys that have decent floors, but don't necessarily have these crazy ceilings where they're going to, get 3 or 4 touchdowns, but somebody that's going to be involved. Like, you're not going to play a Nyheim Hines, even though he's in a good game environment. I think this week for GPPs, you're not going to play him in cash.
Right. And just really quick for newbies on correlation, what you're saying is you're looking for, you need to have a game script and be able to, you're trying to predict, both teams, how they're going to score, and you're going to play players on both teams because you can't have a blowout if the other team doesn't score.
Well, when you look at, so as you follow along today and you look at your players and how they're scoring points, you can do it on like DK Live. It's a good app on your computer and your phone, and you can kind of track how those players are scoring. Outside of big, huge touchdowns, the accumulation of yards, the accumulation of receptions, and those 100-yard bonuses tend to happen in the third and fourth quarter. So when we're looking at wide receivers specifically, you're going to notice that some of those guys really just pop off in the last quarter or just miss. Like, I think it was David Johnson not too long ago that I was like, man, he was 2 yards away. And if you got those extra 2 yards and didn't drop that touchdown, that's an extra 10 points. He had a huge game at that point. If you just got those 2 yards, you get an extra 3 points, which is, half a touchdown. So you're looking for games for wide receivers that they're going to be active in that fourth quarter, that the quarterback's going to be throwing. And so a game like Buffalo and Seattle, the reason that game is something that people are going to target is it's the highest implied over under 54.5 points. It's only a 3-point spread. So that's a popular game that both teams should be active in the fourth quarter, or at least I'm hoping and I'm banking on, versus a game like Kansas City and Carolina, where I do hear some people are going to be game stacking this, and I certainly think that you can make a case for it, but it's a 51-point implied over under, but there's an 11-point spread or 10-point spread, 10.5 points. Is Kansas City going to need to kind of put their foot on the pedal at the end of the game? I mean, they did last week. Obviously, they're not going to pull their starters, but are they going to be a little bit more conservative at the end of the game?
All right. Thanks, Jared. It's a great question. Glad you asked it. Johnny Danger wants to know how we can manage a show without him, and I say very efficiently.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about somebody going, and if anybody's wondering where Johnny Danger is, he has COVID-like symptoms, so we decided to distance him out of the podcast. And it's going to be a real weird situation for him. What if this is the week that Danger just has a fantastic week? Now, I know he's a little bit superstitious like myself, and he's going to try. How is he going to replicate his COVID brain next week or the week thereon after if the antibodies are stopping it from in his head? Is first sip for Johnny Danger going to be NyQuil and Robitussin every single week? I mean, we're going to have an intervention if that's the case.
Yeah, really. All right. All right, let's roll into this. As always, we use DraftKings as our main point system, and I have ownership brought up right now. So let's roll into quarterback. You already brought it up in our earlier discussion, the Seattle Buffalo game. Those are two of the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate right now, Russell Wilson and Josh Allen. The other one in double digits is Deshaun Watson. Outside of that, the ownership's pretty flat like it usually is with quarterbacks. For me personally, outside of Russell Wilson and Josh Allen. I really like Justin Herbert. I have a sprinkling of Patrick Mahomes. He's just so expensive; it's hard to fit him in a couple of places. And I'm torn on Stafford. I always have a Stafford lineup, and I'll let you go from there. I have one more who's super low owned, and I'm not really sure why, and I love the position he's in, but I'll let you go.
All right, yeah. So there's a couple guys that you can get low. Yeah, I mean Russell Wilson's my favorite play. Absolutely, they're going to be running out DJ Dallas in the rushing game. He wasn't super impressive last week. If you look at a yards by or per carry, did find the end zone 2 times, so his score was okay. I think people are going to go there, but I'd rather just trust Russ. Josh Allen's fine, but again, I'd rather trust Russ. I don't care if they're ahead; they're still going to throw the ball. The problem I have with Deshaun Watson, and while I do like him in certain formats, but not so much in GPPs, I guess, is that I just don't know what Jacksonville's going to do on the other end. It's just Jake Luton. We don't know how he's going to perform. We don't know if they're going to live up to their side of things, and so Deshaun Watson's just. I didn't end up with a whole lot of them. I did in the early slate, but not in my main ownership. My main lineups are Russ, Herbert, like you said. I think I was ahead of the game on Herbert. I'm going to continue to be there. I'm going to ride that train until it goes off the tracks, and then I'm going to get back around it again. I think a couple guys that aren't being mentioned that are fine are Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. Again, it's situations on the other side of them that I don't think that they're, Phillip Rivers or Tua are going to fulfill their side of the bargain to make these guys viable into the fourth quarter. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they're worried that Matt Stafford missed practice all week. Like, what? That's crazy to me. Matt Stafford has been in this offense for what, like, I don't know. I don't even know, like 10 years it feels like, maybe even longer. And I'm not sure how long he's been in the league, but he doesn't need to practice this week. I heard somebody on the radio, obviously I was in the car for a long time, say they're worried about quarterbacks coming back off of COVID. How do you have a radio show, bro? He didn't have COVID.
No.
Close contact. Like this, if anything, this is probably a good thing for Stafford. He got to chill out, hang out with his kids, not worry about anything, not go through the practice. He's fresh. I like that play, especially at 3% ownership. But I wonder if I can guess the guy that you have, because the other guy that I have in one of my 4 main lineups is Derek Carr.
No, well, it's not Carr for me. But explain why you like Carr.
Well, that's going to be the second highest total game. I mean, my main lineups are focused around the Buffalo, Seattle, and then the Las Vegas Chargers game. Those are the two. If you like Herbert and you're thinking that on the other side of things that Las Vegas is going to fulfill their bargain, you've got Derek Carr down there at 5,700. Like it's a huge discount. He is more difficult to figure out who you're going to stack him with unless you're just going to go eat the chalk with Darren Waller. But I've got a lineup that's got a little Nelson Aguilar. It's got a little Hunter Renfrow. I mean, that's gross, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, both of these guys are viable. If we look at Chargers games, and this is the key part of this, is it's not so much Las Vegas. Then you can look at Las Vegas games as a matter of fact and take a look at what Derek Carr has done. Last week is the anomaly. But these are the totals for Chargers games. 30-31, 39-29, 27-30, 31-38, 16-21, 20-23, and then the 16-13 he wasn't involved in. But those are huge games. We're talking 70, 57, 67, 61. Yeah. A lot of points scored. Quarterbacks have scored over 30 points against this Chargers team 3 times so far this year.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. I didn't play a lot this week, but I have several Justin Herbert stacks. I'm leaning towards Mike Williams a little bit this week, and most of them I'm running back with Waller.
But, yeah, I mean, I think Mike Williams is great, especially if Keenan Allen is out. I mean, that's the thing. I love Keenan Allen. But he had COVID-like symptoms. I don't know, Danger.
He's got a sore back.
Yeah, well, so look, and I wrote him up in my article. Keenan Allen's another guy that I talk about all the time, and he's kind of at that peak price point. But you look at Keenan Allen, 12 targets, 13 targets, was injured, so we'll throw that game out. 12 targets, 19 targets, 10 targets. He's going to find the end zone in half the games that he plays.
Yeah,
like you got to monitor that though. If he's out, Mike Williams becomes just absolutely fantastic because that one game that he was out, he had the 2 targets. That was against the Saints. That was the game that Mike Williams ended up having 8 targets. He had 8 targets last week too, but I mean, Mike Williams could have 3, 1, 4, and with Keenan Allen in there, that's what you're risking. With Keenan Allen out, I just Mike Williams' smash spot. I think you can also elevate Jalen Gooten at that point. You can play him anyway. Like guy just needs to catch one ball. That's his thing. But with Keenan out, there's a lot. That whole offense just becomes even more attractive because it's more centralized and easy to figure out.
So it looks like Johnny Danger is giving us updates as we go along. Looks like Keenan Allen is in today.
Okay, great. Yeah. Then whatever. Doesn't change anything.
So to finish out the quarterbacks, the one guy who I'm personally surprised is solo owned 1.4%. is Ben Roethlisberger against Dallas. I guess it's because you don't expect Dallas to score a lot of points coming back, but I just kind of see it as a space where Ben can throw 250 yards and 2 touchdowns and, make a possible run at a GPP.
Yeah, but 250 yards and 2 touchdowns doesn't get you there, man. I mean, that's 10 points plus 14. That's 18 points. That's 3x. It's not going to be good enough. He needs to be 300 and over and more touchdowns at that point. So yeah, it's not gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm saying that's kind of like the floor to me. I can see where he can go higher than that.
Yeah, I think the issue is that he has not been throwing the ball downfield as much. I think Pittsburgh's going to, be in a situation where they're 14-point favorites, and a lot of people, by all means, think that this should be 21 or more. Dallas just isn't going to do anything, and it's not going to force Ben to make those passes. He hasn't been able to really accurately throw the ball downfield. So there are going to be a lot of shorter passes, and I think that this game sets up more for James Conner, and his ownership is an indication of why Ben is so low owned. I mean, if you're going down to that 2%, sub 2%, I mean, obviously Derek Carr's right there. I think Ryan Tannehill is a guy that is playing a defense that is, by all accounts, pretty good in Chicago, but this still is a defense that has given up points to opposing teams. Not so much to quarterbacks, but last week they gave up 34 points to Drew Brees. And, I think Tannehill's better than some of the other quarterbacks that they've played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I agree.
And Tannehill's not my favorite play there. I'd rather, if I'm going to play in that game, one off with like an A.J. Brown or Corey Davis, or certainly his ownership is also affected by one Derrick Henry.
All right, let's roll into running backs really quick here.
I think there's quite a few of them this week.
Yeah, I love running backs this week. Obviously, huge chalk with Delvin Cook, Chase Edmonds. They're 2 of my favorite plays. Any running back against the Lions, I'm going to play. Chase Edmonds really tends to smash when Drake is out. He's not going to be splitting the carries with him. You mentioned James Conner. He's up there at 17%. And then you have a few question marks like, do you play Pollard if Zeke is out?
No.
How do you feel about CEH? He's down at 6%. So go ahead, start us out.
Yeah, there's a couple plays. So Dalvin Cook, Chase Edmonds, both really good plays, good situations. Like you said, Chase is not going to be splitting with Kenyon. He is splitting with Kyler, who runs the ball quite a few times. But this Miami team is really bad against the run. They've been decent against the pass, and so it's a situation that these ownerships are justified. I think Justin Jackson being highly owned is a fantastic play. It's a price thing. I've got a lot of Justin Jackson. Talking again about that Chargers offense and how that's all going to work. James Conner, great play. I think Josh Jacobs is another guy that could get 20, 25 carries. Same thing with James Conner. Both of those guys are playable and in a lot of my lineups. And then there's David Johnson. I mean, we're talking against Jacksonville, another team that's terrible against running backs. David Johnson's been just kind of there, has a nice floor, certainly has a ceiling, quite possibly in this game. I think his touchdown prop is like negative 167, and they've got his yards at like 73 rushing, 20. So we're looking at 100 all-purpose yards with the touchdown, 3 receptions. That puts us about 18, 19 points.
I like it. How do you feel about James Robinson coming back there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the easiest run back if we're trying to correlate that lineup, but at 7K, it is kind of expensive. He's had a couple games where it makes sense. Against Houston the last time, he played a fair company of stats. I mean, just didn't rush the ball very well, he had a good amount of receptions. It just didn't do a lot with him. But I don't know. I think that this game more closely resembles the Miami game, where I feel like they're going to struggle and they're going to get. I don't know. I like the Texans to win. I mean, so does Vegas by 7+ points. That reminds me of the Miami game, and that was a game where he crushed. So I don't have a problem with it. I didn't end up with any James Robinson myself. Just at that price point, I think guys like Connor Edmonds are just a little bit better and have similar ceilings. Even though their ownership's higher, I don't know. Again, we don't know what this offense is going to look like and how many plays they're going to run, how many first downs they're going to convert.
So a couple of, I guess, contrarian plays from me. I really like Antonio Gibson against the Giants. He's only 4% owned, but it seems like a really good spot against that Giants team. They're just not a good team. And then although he's the highest priced running back on the board, CMC is playing and he's against Kansas City. I understand that, but we've always said in the past that he's pretty much matchup proof, and he's sitting there at 4% ownership. And I know people are scared off of him because he's coming back from injury, but it felt like they didn't rush him back last week. They gave him another week. I think it's a really good contrarian play, especially in a tournament, if you can squeeze him in at that salary.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a huge discount on him, so I don't have a problem with the play at all. He's just expensive in terms of there's a lot of other guys that are expensive. Your Dalvin Cooks, your Derrick Henry, your Keenan Allen, your Julio Jones, some other guys that we haven't gotten into yet that make it just difficult to play him. But absolutely, he's very playable.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see him at that price again.
No, I mean, I think the concern is that Mike Davis played well enough to take some snaps away from him, but I think this is a situation where Kansas City is going to be out ahead, 10 points up. There are going to be some dump-off passes. He's going to be involved. I like CMC.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to Aaron Jones Thursday night, where everybody's like, oh, he's going to be on a snap count. He's barely going to play. And what did Green Bay do? Even in the fourth quarter, they were feeding the ball to Aaron Jones because he's their stud. So,
yeah, this isn't the NBA, and this is usually the time of year where people start at least thinking like they do in NBA DFS, where we're thinking about if there's a blowout, we're going to be sitting our stars in the fourth quarter, and so are they going to get enough run? I know we talked about it last week in the group chat, and it's not the case in the NFL.
Right.
And if they are in the second half of the fourth quarter, they've got such a large lead that they've already gotten there.
All right. Any discount running backs that you're looking at this week?
No, really just 2. Justin Jackson, sub 5K.
Yeah.
DJ Dallas, we talked about him. He's okay. Todd Gurley scored a touchdown in almost every single game that he's played, so I guess that you could play him, but the only one that I think that kind of fits a game script is I expect Baltimore, despite the line, and this is my best bet of the week, is Baltimore -1. I mean, I loaded up on that. Nyheim Hines, 4,400 in a game where I think that they're going to trail. I think they're going to throw the ball to Nyheim Hines out of the backfield. So I like Nyheim Hines in this game.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a way deep GPP play.
Sure. Any love for J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, again, same type of situation. If we're talking deep discount GPP, like Millie Maker type situations.
Okay. Awesome. All right, let's go run over to wide receiver. Okay, so as soon as I bring up ownership, I chuckle a little bit. So everybody's saying this is the Tyler Lockett week. We know Russell tends to lock in on a receiver, and I completely understand this play. He's at almost 23% owned right now. And this is because Buffalo gives up a ton in the slot. Tyler Lockett loves playing down there. So, and obviously last week was not Tyler Lockett. So, and then you have, Keenan Allen is up at 20% ownership. I'm a little surprised there. I figured the question tag might have faded him. So here's a good one, a question for you too. Stephon Diggs. So, with Buffalo's play being kind of slow the last few weeks, Diggs really hasn't made value. But obviously there's a lot of people playing him against Seattle because Seattle's so bad in the secondary. Is this a good place to fade him, or do you go ahead and take that 20% ownership and play him?
I think you can play him. Part of the reason, too, Tyler Lockett is going to be a little bit higher owned than DK Metcalf in this game is Tre'Davious White. First and foremost, on the outside is going to be covering Metcalf a lot more than he's going to be covering Lockett. But also Buffalo is the 8th highest blitz percentage. So there are some splits that indicate when Russ is blitzed on a consistent basis, he looks to dump it off to Lockett. And I think that's part of what's driving that ownership. And then plus, look, he's cheaper. I mean, again, we talked about trying to find salary. He's $1,000 cheaper that we can put into a different position, and there's not any clear, concise value in other places. All the quarterbacks are around the same thing. A lot of the running backs that we want are around the same price. And if you look at all of these kind of chalky wide receivers, same type of situation. They're all pretty expensive.
Yeah, I love Seattle in this position. What I found myself doing is, creating the same lineup and just swapping Lockett and Metcalf.
I mean, like I said, I made 4 main lineups. I have one with Lockett, one with Metcalf, one with both, and one with none.
Yeah. All right. Who else do you like up here at the high end?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Julio. Julio without Calvin Ridley. I don't know if that's confirmed, but I assume that it is. That's a play right there. I mean, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. Again, it's a situation where they're going to put up points. Do you want both of them in the lineup with Watson? Maybe not, but a one-off is fine. I think Marvin Jones was supposed to be a lot higher owned. I think you could go with either of the Detroit wide receivers. Marvin Hall at 3,800 is kind of interesting too. Let's see, Allen Robinson with Nick Foles has got a ton of targets. Always love DeAndre Hopkins and Tyreek Hill. I prefer Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore. So I'm kind of surprised that DJ Moore is a little higher owned. But I think, again, it's the same reason that Lockett and Metcalf, there's about $1,000 discrepancy between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I do prefer Adam Thielen over Justin Jefferson. And, I'm not interested in Jerry Jeudy. I looked at him, and I guess this is one of those situations where I understand why everybody is going towards the Denver. I see a lot of Drew Lock. He's cheap, Noah Fant. I just think that this Denver offense is bad. I think this Atlanta secondary, this Atlanta defense as a whole has been better. And so I'm not interested in attacking them, but I don't fault anybody for doing so. Cole Beasley is one of my favorite plays of the week.
Yeah, I found myself with a lot of Cole Beasley this week. Good price and a good situation.
Yeah, Seattle's the absolute worst in terms of defending the slot position, whether it be receptions allowed, whether it be yards allowed, and it's not even close. So, yeah, I mean, I love Cole Beasley. The ones that I really wanted to go to with T.O.I. Hilton out was like a Marcus Johnson, Pittman, Pascal. But the problem that I have with that is it's just, whew, I mean, that's a tough defense they're going against, and it's difficult to figure out which one. The other guy that I think is kind of interesting, going back to if you wanted to play Ben, is I like Claypool a little bit more than Deontay Johnson. I like him a little bit more than Juju, especially in the GPPs, 2%. Runs the ball a little bit. Deontay Johnson's probably going to get hurt. He does every single game. And I don't know. I kind of have this feeling about Claypool. I wouldn't, he's not in any of my main lineups, but I did get some exposure to him in the early only.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up Marcus Johnson. He's at the dead nuts price of $3K. And so pretty easy for him to make value there, and it'll allow you to squeeze some other players in. Obviously, it's a completely GPP play. I'm not going to have a ton of them, but I will have at least one lineup that I use. Him is my lowest cost player, so I can build higher up elsewhere.
Sure, and I said early only. I meant afternoon only. So
yeah. And with the Pittsburgh receivers, that's been the thing. You don't know which receiver is going to go off in which week, and there's 3 of them, right? Juju was last week. You had Deontay the week before. You had Chase Claypool the week before that. So you just don't know there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just kind of scrolling through. I don't really see a lot of low-end wide receivers. It's kind of like what we were talking about this morning. I was struggling with the receivers because I wanted to play all those high-end running backs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I ended up with a lot of Cole Beasley, a little bit of some Mike Williams, which I might swap a couple. I'm a little over on him. I might swap some out now that Keenan Allen's confirmed. Yeah, all right. Let's go into tight ends. Because you did bring up Marvin Jones and Marvin Hall. And over Hall, instead of Hall, I like TJ Hawkinson, but he's, a little higher priced. But if I was going to pick Detroit receivers, that's probably who I would go with, Marvin Jones and TJ Hawkinson. Otherwise, I have some Waller, I have some Hunter, but I found myself, back at Logan Thomas, and I don't know, where's the cheap play? Greg Olsen. I got a little bit of Greg Olsen.
Hunter or Hayden Hurst and Eric Ebron are 2 guys that I like on top of the people that you've mentioned. So that's kind of where I went. I went to Logan Thomas, just staying on brand, and then I do like Ebron, and that's another guy I like. So.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I wound up with 3 or 4 lineups with Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, I mean he's super cheap, absolutely.
He's super cheap, and Chicago struggles against the tight end. So it just seemed like maybe if Tennessee's going to make a game of it, that might be where they go.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't really have much here in the tight end range. I mean, you obviously have your high end guys. They're going to be high owned, and looks like Noah Fant's getting a lot of ownership.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a lot of targets. Slated to score a fair amount of points at that Atlanta game, so I understand it. I just not going to have very much.
All right, so let's roll into defenses, and on that note, my defense of the week is Atlanta. I think they have improved a ton. They're getting a bunch of their defensive players back from injury. They're not the doormat they were the first few weeks of the season, and they're going against a terrible Denver offense.
Yeah, I think that's one way that you can go. I think the other one is going to be, I think I do even have in the early only some Falcons, but I went for the main slate mostly with Arizona.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Against Miami, they're 2,900. They've got 5 interceptions in their last 2 games played. They're going against a rookie quarterback who's going over 2 or 3 time zones. You don't have Gaskin, and you're going to be running, Patrick Laird and Jordan Howard as your running back. So neither do I have any interest in, despite the conversations of them in the DFS world.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. So they can just sit back and play against Tua. That's all they got to do. I don't see any running game coming out of Miami.
Hey, one guy that we didn't talk about in the tight end position that I kind of glanced over, and as I was finishing up my last lineup, was Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is huge discount, gets a ton of targets, can score 2 touchdowns, just really blow up. They don't have a lot of other guys they're going to throw the ball to. I don't care that Dez is active. Mark Andrews is still going to be the guy that Lamar looks to in the green zone in those shorter end zone situations.
Yeah, Baltimore is not getting much love this week. So I think there's a few spots there where you can leverage some low ownership, and that's one of them. And I kind of like Lamar as a naked quarterback in a couple lineups.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like, they put up 38, 33, 20, 31, 27, 30, and 24 points.
Yeah.
They had a bad game against the Eagles where they did give up a fair amount of points from the defensive standpoint. But I mean, we're gonna fault them for losing to Pittsburgh, who by all accounts, and for everything that I say about Ben's arm strength at this point in his career, the team looks good from a defensive standpoint, and he doesn't need to do a lot. I've been waiting for that other, the pendulum to swing in terms of the offensive efficiency, but it just hasn't, and I don't think it needs to at this point. They've shown that they can be good enough. So why are we going to fault Baltimore, who had 4 turnovers, lost by 4 points with 4 turnovers?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand why they're only 1-point favorites in this game. I know it's on the road, but yeah, I'm heavy. That was one of my best bets. That there were just a couple that just didn't seem to make a lot of sense. I think Washington -2.5 is a good bet. Pittsburgh, I think it's at 14.5 now. I just don't see Dallas scoring like at all. And then Atlanta and Seattle, 4 and 3 points. Those are my 5 best bets. I know that Lou has some similar ones, Seattle and Pittsburgh, and then Danger, Seattle, Baltimore. We share a couple of those. So
great. All right. Any final thoughts on team building or any players we didn't talk about?
I don't think so. Let me go back and let me take a look at my lineups. I haven't done my afternoon ones, but I'm going to look into a couple things. Let's see, lineups.
I've been doing terrible on early and afternoon slates, so I've been doing the showdowns instead on the early and afternoon, and I've been winning.
The easy. Well, it depends on how many lineups you're doing, but if you're doing a lot in the afternoon, 3-game slates are easy. Just kind of exclude one game from your build, or only put one person in there, especially if they have some chalky guys there, and do a couple like that. That's basically how I'm putting together my afternoon and 3-game slates. Is that I pull up a bunch of tabs, as I've discussed, and then I'll click 4 teams from the 2 games, and then just exclude that last game. And then I'll do it with the two other games and exclude a different one, and then do the same thing. And then I'll do a heavy stack in one, then I'll do a heavy stack in the other. And when you're building enough lineups, if you're doing that, you're going to be able to avoid some of these chalk plays that have a chance of busting, especially if they're chalky in 3-game slates. And that's how I've avoided like guys like last week, Kittle. Was it Kittle last week? Yeah, it was Kittle last week. He got injured. Didn't do a whole lot, was super high owned, and I didn't have a lot of them in several of my lineups. So that's one of those situations. This week it would be like a guy like Keenan Allen. You're going to have him in, if you have 10 lineups, maybe you don't have him in 10, even if you think he's the best play, you have him in like 5. And then if you have him in 5 other ones, or he's not in those 5, maybe you don't have anybody from that game. And if that game goes under and the 2 other ones blow up, and that's the 2 games that you have stacked, you're just putting yourself into that situation. I've almost won that afternoon slate 2 other times aside from week 1. Was about 10 points out twice. So it's a strategy that's worked very well for me.
That's great advice. All right. let's wrap it up. It's been a great morning again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that there are quite a few good plays. It's how do you put them together? Again, for me, I'm really feeling that Buffalo Seattle game, the Las Vegas Los Angeles game. There are a couple other ones that are out there, and you can play some one-offs, but just try and get your lineups to correlate. So, you have guys running it back, and you have good environments, and there are certain guys that are better than others in one-off situations. But when you're talking about Kansas City, it's difficult. Who are you going to play? So it's easier to just stack the game if you think it's going to go well.
All right. For Chris Emmerich, I'm Brewery Mark. Don't forget to find us on Facebook at Fantasy Football Blueprint and at Draft for Upside. You can also find us at fantasyfootballblueprint.com. And if you have a chance, go check out one of our sponsors, prizepick.com. Use promo code Blueprint. And Johnny Danger has been so successful at that. He's writing articles about it. It's been great. I just started using it. It's a fun little thing. But all right, let's get out of here. Let's go build some lineups, and good luck to everybody. Yeah.